Hello everyone and welcome back to the 24 Hours of Spa, which is a fundraiser race for the Breast Cancer Now charity. We have raised about 1,600 or 1,500 or so pounds for the charity so far, so an excellent performance. We've had a few server issues over the night, but we managed to get through and we've got an hour and 24 minutes left of the race. This last hour of the race is what's known as a crazy hour, which is where donation penalties which come through are applied immediately, all the way up until the final 10 minutes of the race. So it'll be interesting to see who can get what positions through donations to charity. Of course, the link to the donation page is in chat, acm-racing.com/fundraiser. There's a donation link as well as all of the rules around the donation penalties, etc. As soon as that timer hits 1 hour remaining, the penalties will start being applied and we'll see some positions switching around. We've had some pretty fun donations coming overnight. You can see on your screens at the moment there's quite a bit of ballast that's been donated to people. We've had a few switches of drivers and teams being on -40 to being on +40 kilograms of ballast, so it's been good raising money through those switchbacks. And of course, as you can see, most are on the negative side of the ballast at the moment, but there are 2, 3, maybe 4 cars that do have positive ballast, so very interesting to see. One of the ones to note, there's 40 kilos added on to car number 69. That's the team that we saw earlier with Chris Davis in the car, Colin Blythe, and so on. And then there's also the Mustang, the number 444, who was very strong at the start of this race. They have plus 20 kilos on the car. They had a few issues during the restarts because of the server issues, so of course are unfortunately not near the top, but they've still had a very good race, and especially during those first few hours they had a very strong performance. Currently leading the race we have Stanislav Kartovic in the number 1 Lexus for VDES Portal. Been a very strong race for these guys in the Lexus. They've been able to manage to get themselves up to a lap and a half ahead of everyone else, which is a very clear gap of everyone. And they've also got their teammate Nikolai Kulikov at the moment in the 65 Lexus for VDES Portal. That's the teammate of the car number 1. They are currently in P2 and of course are also a lap ahead of the field. So very strong going from the VDES Portal team. You can see at the moment as well that they have -20 kilograms of ballast on both cars at the moment as well. We've had a few donations for this team up and down on the kilograms, but at the moment they're both, as I said, a few laps ahead of everyone else, so I think they are fairly secure in their positions. P3, we have the ISS racing team, Ivan Gibbin at the moment in the Mustang. They've had a very good race. They were set back a little by one of the restarts. They were set back to the rear of the grid, but have managed to climb their way back up into the top 3. This current server that we've got going has been running for 10.5 hours, so during those 10.5 hours the 155 ISS racing team managed to climb themselves into P3. Of course they are 2 laps also behind P2 and P1, so I think the P3 spot of Ivan Gibbin at the moment is fairly secure. The driver behind Tavian Robu is a lap down. You can see that they are only 5 seconds back on track, but of course they are a lap down, so a bit more than 5 seconds. We'll see if there's any donation penalties which are applied, but at the moment the top 3 is looking fairly secure. Down in P5, George Spurtsem, the OLR over limit racing team in that 39 Audi, is one of the cars that's had quite a bit of ballast going up and down. They've had -40, +40, and then -40 again, but they've currently got, I believe, -40 kilograms on their car. Yep, they do. The Audi, of course, one of the ones that suffers quite a bit from added ballast on the straights, so of course these guys will be wanting to keep it in the minus numbers. But these guys currently on lap 229, so 5 laps back from the leader, 1 lap back from P4, but of course they are on the sector 3 of their lap, so they will be on the same lap in a few seconds, but they are still quite far behind, about 1.5 minutes in P5, so they've got quite a bit to gain, but of course donation penalties in that last hour can close those gaps, and we'll be seeing what happens with those. The gap behind to Max Pfluger for the Power Cut Racing team is actually relatively close to the Audi of Spurtsem. Max Fluger in the BMW is currently only 9.4 seconds back from the Audi in P5, and they are both on the same lap as well. So there's potentially a bit of battling that could end up going on between the number 338 and the number 39, which of that we will keep our eyes on. Just behind, we've got the number 965, Oliver Flynn. We saw these guys having a very good start to the race as well, coming from the back of the grid into P1, dropping down a little bit when another driver got in the car, but then climbing their way back up there again. Had a few issues during the restarts, including a few incidents and a few battles, but they are in P7 at the moment, so still a very good performance for these guys, and they are on the same lap as Spertsum and Fluger in front, but they are about a minute behind, so potentially and a few additional spots for these guys, but we'll be seeing it during the final hour. P number 8, Emre Burak Sonmez for the Ball Squad Racing Aston Martin, another very strong contender for today's win, and again another one which has unfortunately had a few battles and a few mishaps during the restarts, but of course these guys are running in P8 at the moment, only 34 seconds back from P7, so plenty of time to be gained and plenty of time to gain it. Still on the same lap as the drivers in front, so again one to keep our eyes on. P9, Daniel Sisula. Currently in the Aston Martin, number 69 Aston Martin, that's the CRT Mustang, sorry. They are on lap 229, so same lap as the drivers in front, but they're about a minute and a half back from P8, which of course is 30 seconds back from P7, so about 2 minutes from P7 and so on. So they are quite a bit back, but not too far out of reach. P10, rounding out the top 10 is Alessandro Mallorca in the number 151 BMW. We saw them having a little bit of a battle with Martinez a few laps ago, but they are now settled fairly well into the P10 position. They're about a minute and a half back from Sisula in the number 69 Mustang. And of course they are crossing the line now as well to put them on the same lap, but of course 90 seconds, a minute and a half behind the P9 position. We'll be seeing if any of that time can be gained. P11, Leila Martinez, the number 455 Transmission Racing McLaren. They are only 6 seconds back from Mallorca. If I jump on board, you can see the Audi of the OLR racing team in front, but in front of them is the BMW of Mallorca, so only 5 seconds back. Potential for a position change there. We did see a bit of scrapping between these two earlier on, so potentially we will see a reignition of that battle. Just behind as well, we have Wyatt Victor for the Ball Squad Racing number 275. That's the sister team of the number 274 Ball Squad Racing Aston Martin. These guys are only 1.5 seconds back from Martinez at the moment, so this is definitely going to be a battle that plays out. Only 1.5 seconds, so potentially in the next few laps or so we'll keep our eyes on it. Halver Schulz in P13 for the number 606 BMW is 54 seconds back from those two. And it's of course 1 lap down as well, so a lot to be gained in this 606 car, but it's something to keep our eyes on. Again, donation penalties might change the order and might drag a few people up or down the grid, but we'll keep our eyes on it. Toga Academy Racing Team for Kevin Pikiri at the moment in the number 45 Aston Martin. These guys are on lap 227, they're on a lap of their own at the moment, they're about 2 minutes back from Schulz on track, so I believe they've just been lapped by the position in front, so I think this position is fairly solid in P14, but it's been a very good race for the Toga Academy racing team so far. P15, Manuel Spendrin for Threshold LR Racing Team, the number 48 Porsche. We saw having a few battles towards the start of this race when we're having the earlier stream, but these guys have had a relatively good race, sticking around the midfield for the majority of this race, and of course are now in P15. They're on lap 226, so a lap back from the driver in front, and they're about a minute and 10 seconds back on track. P16, they're just about to pass them in the pits. Of course, P16, the number 444 car, who we saw having a very good start to this race, very positive start, very fast start indeed to this race. These guys were qualifying P1, managed to keep P1 for the first hour, got in a few collisions during the second hour, but then of course got set back during the server restarts. They're now about 7 laps behind the leader and 1 lap back from Spendrin in front. So I think this again is a position that is fairly solid, but we'll be keeping our eyes on it. Just behind them, Vincent Juguer for the BWE Racing Professional Team. Number 21 Ferrari is currently in P17, lap 225, so about a lap back from the number 444 Mustang, and of course is about a minute and a half back from them on track. Zvisa in P18 is currently on lap 222, is about a minute and a half again behind Yugi, so is also a few laps back from them as well. Don't think there'll be any position change there. They're about 3 laps back from P17 and 3 laps in front of P18, so I think the P18 position for Sam Zvisa is very secure. P19 is the number 201 Mustang for Legion Esports. Xander Coffin is currently in the car. They're about 2 minutes back, and again 3 or 4 laps back from Zvisa as well, so I think this position is very secure for the number 201 Mustang. Again, being a good race for these guys. They started in P18 10.5 hours ago, or 9.5 hours ago, but they are now in P19, so they dropped 1 position, and they are a few laps behind, but it's not too bad overall. P20, Jan Leszewski is in the 341 Ferrari. We've seen them with a bit of damage a couple of times, but they are still out on track, still performing well, and still in the top 20. The Chaos Racing Team Ferrari have had a very good race for these guys. They've been up and down with the incidents and so on, but fortunately have been able to keep on racing. So that rounds out the top 20. There is 2 other cars, JCNG, who we saw at the start of this race, for Accelerate United, the 77 McLaren. These guys are on lap 204 and are about 38 seconds back from P20 on track. They are shown on my screen as P22, of course P21 including the cars that are still on track, so the more laps that they gain, that will be a position for them overall, but at the moment P21 out on track. Another driver in a similar position who we've unfortunately flicked to when they've had a bit of a moment is Gosha Rubczynski in the 588 McLaren. These guys, or this driver, part of a team, 588 Cortex Racing McLaren, started in P22, had a few mishaps since the start of this race about 10 hours ago, and of course is only on lap 7 in their race, so they might potentially be trying to finish the race solo. Nevertheless, they're still keeping it going, 226 laps back. It's still good to be keeping it going. Of course, all the practice counts in these sorts of events, so we'll be seeing how they get on during the final hour. Back up to the top though, we'll go on board with Stanislav Kartovic, see what they're doing. Up at the top, they are about a lap ahead of P2, but again, in 13 minutes or 12 minutes or so, we'll be seeing some donation penalties hopefully coming through. It's been a good 24 hours of racing so far. £1,556.50 raised for breast cancer now. They are an excellent charity supporting people with treatment, services and care for those affected by breast cancer. Of course, breast cancer affects 1 in 7 women around the world, so it's something that I'm sure we all can be fond of, and of course it's an excellent charity to raise money for, so if you do have a spare few dollars and you want to see some extra battles and a few extra position changes, then of course please do donate. The link for that is acm-racing.com/fundraiser. Got Darkness in chat. I believe they were driving for the number 965 team. Oliver Flynn currently in that car in P7. Darkness says, here for a moment to wish all the teams best of luck to the end of the race. We're nearly done with the race and we have raised a lot of money for a great cause indeed. It's been an excellent race so far. Haven't quite raised as much as our previous 24 hours of Spa, but of course with the server issues that was set back slightly. But still, £1,556 is an excellent amount. Of course, every bit of money for charity matters all the most. Darkness says, now for me to get ready for my own stint and hope I don't crash. Interesting, so you're going back in the car for the last hour. Good luck with that. It'll be interesting to see whether there are any donation penalties which come through for you. Hopefully not, but hopefully for the charity's sake. So, Wat Viator, who we did cover earlier, the 275 Baller Squad Racing Aston Martin, is approaching Lele Martinez, the number 455 McLaren that you see in front of you. This battle is for position, and these guys are on the same lap as well, so we'll be seeing a position change potentially for P11, P12. We'll be keeping our eyes on this as the race progresses. Of course, during this final hour, things do become a bit more tense, as this does actually define your finishing position, but of course you don't want to make too big of a mistake, because then you will discard the rest of the races. performance. Obviously, if you crash in the final hour, the 23 hours that you did race becomes less worthful. And as I say that, they wake very late into that corner, almost run into the rear of car number 455. They are rejoining safely though, waiting for the cars to pass. Back on the track now though, and Martinez has a little bit of rest, about 2.5 seconds back to Viator now, so hopefully they're able to keep it consistent and maintain that P11 position. That is the closest battle that we have on track, and of course that is the battle for position with both cars on the same lap. So we'll probably keep our eyes on this for now. We'll have a look at Wyatt Viator's lines to see where he gets going around Spa, and have a judgment of how that goes. So going around Pouhon at the moment, the Aston Martin is, in my opinion, not the best car for Spa. Of course, it all depends on your own driving style. I do drive the Aston Martin regularly. It is my personal favourite, but at Spa, I prefer the BMW. I think it works better, but of course, it's down to each other's personal opinion. It seems like Wyatt Viator is doing very well in the Aston Martin. Of course, teammates with Sonmez, who is also in an Aston Martin in P8, so both teams, both cars doing a very good job. Coming around the Blanchemont corner now, still about 3 seconds back from Martinez, so potentially lost a little bit of additional time during those few corners, but of course 3 seconds back, it's all to be gained for. Of course, a donation, you can donate a 5-second penalty to someone for just £4, so it's not the best way to gain a position, but if you want to gain a position, it's a way to do it. And of course you do donate to charity, so all is in good spirits. We've just had a £15 donation for a removal of a drive-through for car number 965. The donation for the drive-through for 965 was donated about an hour ago. Oh, sorry, about 15 minutes ago. So of course they have retaliated and removed that drive-through, which is entirely possible, meaning they no longer have to serve that drive-through. So interesting. They did that. I believe the 965 team did apply a few drive-throughs to number 274, the number 275 cars, who were behind them at the time earlier on in the race. But of course, the number 274 is about 23 seconds back from Flynn at the moment, and the number 275 car is much further back, about a lap or so back from those two. So we'll be keeping our eye on things, but I think at the moment it will remain as is. About 1.7 seconds back is Viator from the Transmission Racing Team McLaren. You can see that McLaren just in front on your screen. On board, of course, we're on board with Viator at the moment. We're seeing what they can achieve while following behind Martinez. Again, these guys did attempt to move earlier a few laps ago, but of course did end up braking too late, having to run out over the corner, lost a few seconds, dropped back to 3 seconds back, but has now climbed to 1.5 seconds back. So they've certainly got the pace. It just depends on whether they can make the move. Of course, 1 hour left. I have no doubt that plenty of moves will be made. Hopefully they are all safe and don't cause any problems. Of course, if you are watching from one of the teams, you want to jump aboard one of the teams for a few laps to see how they're getting on, let me know. Of course, the gaps are fairly wide out in this last hour or so, so I'll have to try and find something to keep us entertained. There is P6 Max Fluger for the Palcut Racing number 338 BMW. At the moment, these guys are only about 8 seconds back from P5, and of course, they are both on the same lap as well, so this is going to be a battle for position potentially in a few laps. And of course 7 seconds to gain. The last laps for both these cars, number 338 achieved a 2:19.735, with the P5 car, the Lexus number 23, achieving a 2:19.405. The ballast difference in these two cars, P6 and P5, there is plus 20 kilograms for the number 23 Lexus, and number 338 BMW has minus 20 kilograms. So of course there is a 40 kilogram difference in ballast. Nothing overly major, but of course it is something to keep in mind. Viator still 2 seconds back from Martinez at the moment. We'll keep our eyes on that to see whether it gets any closer. Another battle which is interesting, the number 23 Lexus, who we saw a second ago. We were mentioning them with Luger, number 338. They're only 23 or 12 seconds back from Spurtsim at the moment, so this Lexus has about 12 seconds to gain P4, and of course has to watch their rear for the P6 position of 338. They'll be just trying to keep it consistent for this final hour. These guys are on the same lap, so we'll be seeing if there are any position changes. Emre Burak Sonmez is only about 20 seconds back from P7. We did cover this earlier. The number 965 car, the Mustang, currently driven by Flynn, is 20 seconds ahead of the Aston Martin, but this Aston Martin is very fast. Ball Squad Racing number 274 has put in some splendid lap times. The last lap time for this Aston Martin was a 2:17.957, and of course the fastest, or the previous lap time for Flynn in the number 965 in front was a 2 minutes 20.585, so about 3 or so seconds in that previous lap time. Of course, Oliver Flynn, the number 965, has been dealing with a few of the lapping car issues. You can see on the track map on the right hand side, they are just going through the corner Stavolo campus, etc. at the moment, so we'll be seeing how that plays out on their lap times. This time round it's now 18 seconds this gap, so there is an improvement still between Sonmez and Flynn. Again, this is another battle which might potentially play out towards the end of this race, but we'll keep our eyes on it and see if anything happens. Got 2 minutes until the final crazy hour of the race. Currently there is a stop-go 10-second penalty for car number 21, which has been donated by Anonymous. Of course, car number 21 is currently in P17. Gorzelnik is on a lap of their own. It was potentially Zavisa's team which donated that stop and go 10-second penalty. They are only a lap behind Gorzelnik at the moment, of course 57 seconds on track, so potentially a position that they are looking to gain. And of course, all is good when it comes to charity donations, so we'll be keeping our eye on that stop and go 10-second penalty to see how that plays out, and of course where Gorzelnik comes out of the pit lane. Ivan Gibbon, number 155 Mustang. Of course, this was one of the ones that started towards the rear of the grid during this race start. 35 seconds back on track from the Kulikov number 65 VDES Portal Lexus. Of course, that is on track. They are still a lap back from that Lexus, so it is plenty of time for them to gain still, but potentially something which they can get back. You see 65 is going across the line now, so I think that might potentially be a lap and a half that they have on the advantage, but of course donation penalties can affect that. Stuck by a 30-second penalty for the number 65 car would promote P1 or P3 155 Mustang into a fairly good position to give a challenge to that P2 spot, but at the moment it is looking fairly solid for Lexus P1, Lexus P2, bit of Lexus Elite action going on here. Back on board with Milan Hack, the number 23 Emil Frey Lexus Racing is in P5. Of course, these guys are 14 seconds back from the OLR Racing team. Max Fluger, who we were on board with not too long ago, is now in the pit lane. We were saying that these guys were fairly close to the P23 car, but I think there was the difference in pit stops. I do believe that Hack will have to do one more pit stop. They are currently 10 minutes into their stint timer, and there is of course a 65-minute stint timer active on this race, so they will have to do one more pit stop. If Max Fluger can do a quick splash and dash in this one, and then do a fairly consistent and fast stint during the next hour. That would potentially be a P5 for Fluger, as these stints have worked out well. Oliver Flynn is in the pit lane now as well. 57 minutes exists so far on the stint timer. Of course, that is paused at the moment. They are in the pit lane, but these guys will be doing a pit stop, I believe, switching over to darkness for this final hour, and of course looking to gain as many positions as they can as well. These guys started in P5 for this current restart, but are in P8 at the moment. I believe they had an issue at the start with getting into contact and so on, but of course they are in P8 at the moment in the pit lane, ready to do their final stint of the race. Sonmez has just been promoted to P6, of course passing the two cars in P7, P8 through the pit lane. Sonmez does have to do one more pit stop for the stint timer. In this race, they're currently on 58 minutes. Of course, 65 minutes is the maximum you can do. There is another pit stop due for Sonmez. They will have to plan that well and potentially do a splash and a dash, see if they can gain back these positions. Kulikov just coming to the pit lane at 1 hour and 4 minutes is on the stint timer for this number 65 Lexus. They will be coming into the pit lane, doing the pit stop again, doing splash and dash. To see what they can do in this final hour. Obviously, I don't think they'll be able to catch the P1 teammate of Kartovic. Very fast car that number 1 Lexus is, but of course the more lap time you can gain an advantage over P3, the better you stand in P2. Given currently 55 minutes on their stint timer, they're just passing the pit lane now, so I'm not sure there will be any pitting action soon, potentially on this lap, but as they've still got 10 minutes, I think they'll be doing a splash and dash for the least amount of fuel they can towards the end of this race. Anyone else in the pit lane? We have Spendrin coming into the pits. They've just stopped. They are currently 46 minutes into their stint timer. Of course, once again, doing a splash and dash to do this final hour. The drivers who pit now will be finished with pit stops for this race. Of course, that is counting whether they have any damage or so on, but hopefully this will be the last pit stop for these guys. Schulz is just coming into the pit lane as well. They are 58 minutes into the stint timer. Of course, if they do a pit stop now, that is their last pit stop. These guys are in P13. They're on a lap of their own, so I think they're fairly secure in their position. P14 is only 37 minutes into their stint, so they can definitely do a splash and dash towards the end of this race, but it'll be interesting to see how those pit stops play out. Of course, there is that 1 lap difference between these guys, so I'm not sure there is too much leeway. Spendrin just behind them has swapped over to Franciszek Ruzicki now, and of course is on a lap of their own as well, so when they come out of the pit lane, they will just be keeping it consistent and clean towards the end of this race to finish off the 24 hours in 15. JCNG has been in the pit lane as well. The Accelerate United number 77 McLaren has done their pit stop. These guys are 5 laps back from P20, so of course won't be changing much during this final hour, but of course finishing a 24-hour race is good enough in itself and is rewarding for all the work put in, so of course just finishing this race is as big as ever. P4, P5, there is 12 seconds that remains. Of course, we saw this earlier on, the Lexus of number 23 car, 13 seconds back from the OLR Over Limit Racing number 39 Audi. Both cars are on the same lap number 240. That's potentially a battle between these guys. Hack is currently 14 minutes into their stint. They might be trying to split the stint or maybe do a long stint and then do a splash and dash towards the end. That can be very effective if you do a splash and dash. Spursum, the ALR Audi, has done 46 minutes of their stint at the moment, so in the next 20 minutes we'll have to do their pit stop as well. Of course, they can do a splash and dash, not quite as much of a splash and dash as the Hack Lexus, but of course it will be interesting to see the difference in those cars. Of course, the more fuel that you put on the car, the more weight that you have on the car, and of course we've seen a lot of people donating ballast. The effect of ballast throughout this race, so the more weight or the less weight they have, the better. So the better you can do a splash and dash, the better your position will be by the end of the race. Another interesting stat for today's race, this fastest that we have had through the speed trap is 281 kilometers an hour. I'm not sure entirely where the speed trap is on track, but 281 kilometers an hour was set by two cars, both Lexuses. The number 65, Nikolai Kulikov, holds the speed trap at the moment, 281 kilometers an hour, and Hack also holds the same speed trap time of 281 kilometers an hour. Of course, both those Lexuses are in P2 and P5 respectively, but are both doing similar sort of lap times. Of course, pit stop here at Spa does take 1 minute and 50 seconds on average, so you do have to factor into your stops. The splash and dash is about 1 minute and 30 seconds. It's still quite a significant amount of time, so trying to do these stints around the least pit stops possible will gain you those positions. Of course, with 10 hours and 30 minutes in this race that was counted, and the 65-minute stint timer, it is potential that drivers extend those stints and of course allow themselves to do one less splash and dash, but we can see that some drivers have not done that, and potentially had some damage that they've had to count for, so it'll be interesting to see the overall effect. 3.9 seconds back between 965 Darkness and 69 Mustang Daniel Schuler. Of course, I'm not sure entirely why these guys are going into the pit lane. I believe they're fine on the stint time Mustache in Darkness. They've got a drive through that was donated, which is why they're in the pit lane. Of course, that is going to affect them and put them relatively on par with Sasula. Obviously, Sasula is one pit stop down there on the end of their stint time at the moment, 1 hour and 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So they are doing their final pit stop for the 50-minute sprint to the end of the race, but of course are doing a drive through at the same time the number 965 Mustang is doing theirs. So they'll only be about 30 seconds back from the 65 compared to what would usually be about a minute and a half from a regular pit stop. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but at the moment of course they are both travelling through the pit lane. Mallorca just coming out of the pit lane, they've just done their final stop. They're about on lap 239 at the moment, so if they can do a lap to catch up with Sula, who's also in the pit lane, that would be a position, but it of course has only about 60 seconds or so. Now you can see that Sula did go through majority of the pit lane by the time Mallorca left, so I think that P10 for the number 151 BMW is relatively secure. Speaking of that, Martinez has just left the pit lane as well. We saw Martinez and Mallorca having a little bit of a battle earlier. There is 14 seconds between these two cars. Number 455 McLaren is on lap 239, 13 seconds back. It'll be interesting to see how far they can catch up. They also have to keep an eye on their mirrors, as William Bjorkman for the Boulder Squad Racing number 275 is only about 5 seconds back from Martinez, so potentially a battle brewing there. Both cars are on their final stints, so won't have to do another pit stop before the end of this race, unless of course there is a donation penalty. We've had a drive through for car number 965 so far. Car number 69 has given themselves minus 40 kilograms of ballast, and we have had other drive-through penalties for car number 965, but unfortunately the previous one, the most recent one, has been served. So 965 will of course lost out a bit of time because of that, but they are about 46 seconds in front of Sasula, who we thought they would be. We'll keep our eyes on Bjorkman at the moment. Of course, 5 seconds between Bjorkman and Martinez. This is the relatively close battle that we have on track. Gibbon into the pit lane now as well. Gibbon is on currently the same lap as Kulikov, the number 65 car, but of course the 65 car is about to come across the line, and Gibbon is going into the pit lane. I believe Kulikov is on their final stint. Yes, they are. So they will be able to go until the end now. So they will be finishing about a lap behind number one, a lap ahead of the number 155. So this pit stop that Gibbon is doing, their final pit stop, will be setting them in P3. Of course, the number 155 is the car that started from the rear of the grid at the start of this 10.5-hour stint. So of course they've done very well to get up into P3, and of course towards the end of this race the gaps are much bigger. So it's good they are able to be so solid in there. Milan Hack is about a lap or two back from Gibbon, so I don't think there'll be any position change there. Of course, they are coming up towards the end of the lap at the moment, with car number 155 starting to leave the pit lane. There'll be about 20 seconds or so on track difference, but of course, with that one lap, it won't change any positions, unless, of course, there are donation penalties which are made. Donation penalties which are given now are immediately applied up until the final 10 minutes of the race. That'll be interesting to see who donates what and what levels we get up to. Of course, if you want to see your specific team or a specific driver, let me know and I can swap to them. Number 455 has had a bit of a moment on the Kemmel Straight. They're currently trying to get themselves back going. I apologise for the camera there. ACC is not the best with camera angles sometimes. But these guys are on a lap of their own at the moment, so they're fine to have little moments like that. It won't be too detrimental. They're 2 laps ahead of P17 Golzelnik. Of course, the less that they can have these incidents, the less damage that they can get, the better. But of course, it's not too detrimental at the moment. Hans-Peter Jürgens for the Power Cut Racing is now in control of the number 338 BMW. 242 laps have been completed in this 10.5-hour stint so far. They're about 15 seconds back from Spurtsim in the OLR Audi, so plenty of time to be gained there. 16 seconds, something which could potentially be gained by a few penalties. The ballast difference between P5 and P6. P5 has minus 40 kilograms, P6 has minus 20 kilograms. So there is a 20 kilogram difference between those two cars. Nothing overly major, but of course it is something which is to be considered as well. P5, Bjorkman has dropped down a little bit. It's about 5.1, 5.2 seconds back from Martinez. Bjorkman is going into the pit lane. They have a drive-through. I don't believe that was a donation penalty, so that would potentially be from track limits. Of course, you have to watch the track limits during endurance races. They do carry over between teammates as well, so if you have a teammate which does get 3 track cuts, you get into the car, you have 1 track cut. That is a drive-through for you, unfortunately, so it's something which a lot of teams do pay close attention to in these 24-hour endurance races, but of course the odd track cut here and there is expected. But Bjorkman is in the pit lane now. That will unfortunately set them out of contention for P11, unless of course Martinez gets the drive-through as well. Wink wink at the donation penalties, but we'll be seeing how that turns out. Martinez is 14 seconds back from Mallorca, both on the same lap as well, so potentially a position change for Mallorca and Martinez. There is about 14 seconds between the 2 cars. Another 15-second or so gap is the Hans-Peter Jürgens and Spurtsim OLR Audi gap. The OLR Overlimit Racing George Spurtsim OLR team is on lap 243. They're about 15 seconds in front of Jürgens at the moment, something which we will potentially keep our eyes on. As we said, there is the 20 kilogram difference here as well. The Audi is one of the cars which does suffer quite a bit from a difference in ballast, so these guys have been trying to keep it on minus 40 as much as they can. Kulikov is behind their teammate of Kartovic at the moment. Kartovic will have to do 1 more pit stop. Of course, Kulikov is about 2 laps back from Kartovic at the moment, so there's quite a big gap between those two, but of course with that pit stop, 1.5 minutes will be lost. It's not too significant, won't lose them 2 laps, but it will be something which is taken into consideration for the final time. Of course, if there are any stop-go penalties or any drive-through penalties were donated to car number 1, car number 65 would be at an advantage, but I don't think car number 65 will be making those donations, as both cars number 1 and 65 are on the same team, so it would be sort of jeopardising their own results. But it'll be interesting to see, nevertheless, if something does come through. Milan Hack is about 10 seconds on track behind car number 155. Of course, car number 155 is a lap ahead, however, so that gap is slightly bigger than it appears. Both cars are on their final stints, with, of course, Cataldo we just saw doing their pit stops. They are on a fresh set of tyres, are on a relatively low amount of fuel. We will be able to put in some solid lap times towards the end of this race. The fastest lap we have had so far this race is a 2:15.8 from Stanislav Kartovic. That was set in the number 1 Lexus. I'm not sure when exactly that was set, but of course a very fast lap time from those guys. And of course they are on minus 40 kilograms of ballast, so that did play into the advantage. But of course these guys are 2 laps ahead of everyone else as it stands at the moment, so they have nothing to worry about and are setting very fast lap times as well. Few of the lap times that we've had a few 2:16s, Kulikov, Cataldo, Hack, Smith Adams, Darkness, Sluna have all set 2:16s. Not specifically those drivers, but those teams have set 2:16 lap times. So of course, very fast drivers throughout all of them. The majority of those do have negative 40 kilograms of ballast. So of course that would have played into their advantage, but it'll be something which is taken into consideration overall. Next, we've had 2:17s. We've had 2:17 from Spurzheim and Jurgens, 2:17 from Mallorca, as well as Schulz, Tamin and Golzelnik's teams. The rest is 2:18s, 2:19s. No one else has set a 2:15, so Kartovic is currently the fastest driver by a long shot on track, and of course that's visible by the amount of laps that they are ahead. Jump back on board with Martinez and stay on board as transmission racing team McLaren. For now, these guys are about 15 seconds back from Mallorca. It is the closest battle that we do have on track. At the moment, there is another 15-second gap between Jurgens and Spurzheim. I'll keep my eye on that as well, but at the moment it's been fairly consistent between the teams. Of course, 43 minutes left of the race. We'll be seeing if there are any more donation penalties which come through. Of course, if you donate now, the penalty is applied immediately. So a drive-through penalty, just £15, sorry, will apply to whatever car which you want it to go towards, and of course a drive-through here at Spa is about 80 seconds long, so that's an 80-second gap which you can pull for a £15 donation to charity. This is a fundraiser for the Breast Cancer Now, the research and support charity. They do a lot for not just those directly affected, but those indirectly affected as well. They provide the best treatment, services and care for everyone affected, so the families of as well as the people directly affected. Very good charity, very good cause, so please do consider donating if you haven't already. We'll jump on board with Jurgens for a bit. It's getting fairly stale out here on track, so of course if you do want me to look at a specific team or a specific driver, just let me know and I'll watch them for a few laps. Of course, 41 minutes left of this race. Plenty of time still to come, plenty of donations potentially to be applied, so we'll be seeing how this goes throughout the rest. 14 seconds Jurgens is from Spurzheim at the moment. Of course, any ballast which is donated through the fundraising system will be applied immediately, so of course the Spurzheim OLR team has been trying to fight to keep their ballast at minus 40 kilograms. Of course, if any ballast is donated, that would not only trigger donations to the charity, but it would also potentially cause a battle between P5 and P6. jump on board with Spursum. They're behind a few blue flags at the moment as they go through Rouge. The blue flagged Ferrari in front is the Ferrari, I believe, driven by Mazurek. Yes, it is. That's the Chaos Racing number 341. I believe they should hopefully let the Audi through on this next corner. We'll keep our eyes on things though, of course. Blue flags give way. We've seen relatively good blue flag action this race, but of course there are a few moments where drivers have made some mistakes, don't give way in places where they should, and of course incidents happen. That's part of racing, but hopefully there's nothing too major. Xander Coffin in the 201 Mustang is a driver that is only about 8 seconds back from the car in front of them on track, but of course they are a few laps back as well, so nothing will be gained potentially by Xander. It'll be a very solid P19 for them. They're about 4 laps back from Zavisa, number 52 Ferrari in front. Zavisa, of course, is a lap back from Gozolnik as well, so we'll be seeing how that plays out. Hans-Peter Jürgens is now 13 seconds back from Spursum, so a little bit of time gained in those few laps there. Nothing too major, but any time gained is time gained, so they'll be trying to keep it as in the minus numbers as possible. The previous lap times for both those cars, the Spursum OLR Audi set at 2:17.775, with the Jürgens BMW set at 2:17.805, so very, very close lap times between those two, literally 2 or 3 hundredths of a second difference. With of course Jürgens being a little bit slower. Darkness has another drive-through penalty. You can see that on the left-hand side of your screen. The number 965 Mustang has another drive-through penalty to serve. So this Mustang will have to go back into the pit lane at some point and serve that. That is not one that has been donated as far as I'm aware, so I think it is for track limits. As I said, during these 24-hour races you can swap over from a teammate who has picked up too many track limit cuts, and of course that will mean that you will have to serve that drive through. But of course it's all to be taken into consideration for endurance races like this, as well as the server issues which we had earlier. They are all unfortunate, but we did fight very hard to get this back on track, and we've been racing for the previous 10 hours, and all has been well. Hopefully it remains for the next 38 minutes, but of course we are at mercy to server gods. 14 seconds is now standing between Spursum and Jürgens. Jürgens is previously set at 2:18.745 compared to Spursum's 2:18.870. It was a faster previous lap compared to Spursum, but again only about a tenth or so between those laps. Spursum's previous lap was an invalid lap as well, so they did have a bit of an incident at some point, and a 2:18 is, I think, a fairly slow lap for the both of them in comparison to their regular lap time, so of course they might have both made a mistake somewhere. It's clear air for both drivers at the moment though. You can see the POV of Jürgens on your screen. There is a car in front that's number 48 Lexus, sorry, the Porsche, that's Rosicky, who is a blue flag in front, so hopefully nothing too major time blockage wise from that car, but I'm not predicting that there will be anything. In front of them, the number 151 BMW of Mallorca is also a blue flag, so again hopefully no issues with those blue flags. Spursum, Jürgens and Smith Adams in the number 274 Aston Martin are all on the same lap, so we'll all be fighting to see what they can do. Of course Smith Adams is quite a far bit away from number 338 and number 39 pairing in front. They're about 1 minute and 12 seconds back, so of course quite a bit of time to gather. Of course a drive through here is 80 seconds of time loss, and it is of course £15 donation to charity, so it might be worth it. For Smith Adams it depends on what people want to donate, but of course it is to an excellent cause. This race is a fundraiser for breast cancer now. They support people affected by breast cancer, both directly and indirectly affected. An excellent charity, please do consider donating. This race is hosted by ACM Racing. We host endurance events every weekend for 6 weeks straight, followed by one break weekend, followed by another 6 weeks of endurance racing. We also host 5 sprint events per week. Those can be 30 minutes to 3 hours long. So we have mini endurance Thursdays, which relatively copy the format that we see on Saturdays. They are about 100 to 180 minutes long, so anywhere between an hour and a half to 3 hours long. They're on Thursday evenings. You can race it as a team, and of course there is a 65-minute stint timer in those as well, so it's something which you guys can get involved with to get some practice for these larger endurance races. Next weekend we have 4 hours of Brands Hatch taking place on the 14th of March. That takes place at 11 o'clock AM UTC time, and is of course a relatively big race. It has 65 people signed up to it at the moment, so that will potentially lead to a good few battles. There is of course 50 cars that can fit on Brands Hatch in games, so hopefully we are able to fit in as many as we can. This evening we have GT3 Sundays round number 4. It's 60 minutes at Spa, so the same track that we're on at the moment, 60-minute sprint this evening. So if you do fancy getting involved with ACM, acm-racing.com is the place to go. You can get involved with the racing, get involved with the sprint racing, and of course the endurance racing on weekends. Jurgens has dropped back 14 seconds to Spurzheim. Of course, they were 13 seconds a few laps back. The previous lap that was set by Spurzheim was a very fast lap time of 2:17.5, and Jurgens set a 2:18.1. So as I said, both cars did previously set a slow lap time, and Spurzheim managed to gather that back up, setting a 2:17.552. Only 1/10 slower than their fastest lap, so Spurzheim is definitely got some speed in him, and of course Jurgens setting the previous lap time about 6-7 tenths slower than their fastest lap, so they did lose a few tenths on that lap. This lap we'll see what the performance is: a 2:17.8 for Spurzheim and a 2:17.6 for Jurgens. So these two have gotten a bit close to that lap, only about 2 tenths, so nothing too significant, but Jurgens did set a very fast lap time, only 2 tenths slower than their fastest lap, so again these guys are racing very well. "33 minutes left of the race. Closest gaps that we have on track are about 15 seconds or so. Darkness is serving their drive-through at the moment. You can see on the left hand side of your screen, Darkness number 965 P8 at the moment has a drive-through next to their name. Sluna, who we are on board with at the moment for the CRT Mustang Racing Team, has passed them in the pit lane. Of course, that drive-through is for track limits. And there has just been a drive-through donated to car number 69 as well, so of course that battle will resume. Those gaps will get closer. The drive-through penalty, which was served by number 965 for track limits, is now being served to car 69 for a donation of £15 to charity, so will be a good bit of action coming out of that. You can see they are just passing car number 23, I believe that was the blue flag of hack, essentially not a blue flag, but that they just let that position go. So an unlapping attempt from Sluna there. All was okay though. Got a little bit confused. I thought it was a blue flag, but all is good, and we will be seeing the number 69 Mustang trying to gain as much advantage as they can over this lap to try and minimise the effect of the drive-through. You can see the drive-through has been applied now on the left hand side of your screen, a drive-through to car number 69. They will have to serve it during the next 3 laps. There is of course 31 minutes left of the race. They might want to potentially use the clean air that they've got at the moment to get in some good lap times and make that gap wider, but of course they might want to just serve it early so they know what position they're in and know how hard to fight for the number 965 to be potential for P8, P9. P9 Such in Darkness did come out about 40 seconds or so back from Luna, and of course the drive through here at Spa is about 70 to 80 seconds long, so we will see quite a significant gap between those two. I think there is a bit of lap time variation between Luna and Darkness as well. Luna's previous lap time was a 2:18 flat. I think Darkness is setting about 2:18.5s, potentially even lower, but we'll be hopefully seeing a good battle between these two nevertheless. Jurgens has unfortunately dropped back a little bit now from Spursum. Spursum did set a personal best on the previous lap at the 2:17.205. Very fast lap time for that Audi. Of course, almost hitting a 2:16. We've not hit many 2:16s. P2, P3, P4 have also hit 2:16s. So Spursum hitting a 2:16 as well would fit them nicely into the top 5 pace timers. But of course, Jurgens previously set at 2:18.4, so about 1.2 seconds was dropped on that previous lap. Not sure this is going to be developing into a battle anytime soon, but of course one to keep our eye on nevertheless. Martinez is about 18 seconds back from Mallorca now. This was one which was earlier about 17, 18 or 13, 14 seconds difference. Of course that has been expanded to 18 seconds now. I believe Martinez has had a few slow laps compared to Mallorca. The previous lap was a 2:20.182 compared to Mallorca's 2:19.410. So of course about 6-7 tenths was dropped on that lap. Jump back on board with the number 69 Mustang. They didn't serve the drive-through the previous lap. We'll be seeing it if they serve the drive-through this lap. Of course they have this lap and the next lap to serve it, so they'll be serving it soon without a doubt. Seems like they're going for the longer version of serving that drive-through, so trying to extend the gap that they have using this clean air that they've got at the moment. The number 965 car also has a bit of clean air. They've just passed a blue flag off the track, but of course has about 20 or so seconds to car number 45 in front, and of course car number 45 is a flag as well. We'll be seeing where P8 Daniel Luna comes into the pit lane. We'll be seeing how far they drop, or potentially whether they drop at all. They're coming round into the bus stop at the moment, so we'll be seeing whether they go into the pit lane. No, they don't. They go around for another lap, so they will have to serve this pit stop, this drive-through penalty on the end of this current lap, and of course will be about 80 seconds or so lost. There is a 54-second gap between Darkness and Luna at the moment, so we'll be seeing potentially a battle brewing those two. Jurgens is now 16.5 seconds back from Spursum. I think Spursum has potentially had an issue also this lap. The previous lap time was an improvement on the gap for Spursum. It was 2:17.9 compared to Jurgens' 2:18.6, so again another 7 tenths that was gained on that previous lap. Jurgens did have an invalid lap as well, so potentially had an issue or two. Nothing too major, of course. It is only a few tenths and a few seconds, but of course to be accounted for. Halvar Schulz is only 0.6 seconds back from P12, but is a lap down, so while it does look close on the timing board, there is that lap difference. I don't think there is any stint timer difference for these two. Nope, they're both on about 26 seconds or 27 minutes of the stint timer, so we'll be seeing no potential change in position there. Of course there is a lap difference, and it is quite hard to gain a lap of time in 27 minutes. Of course, if the Aston Martin of Bjorkman makes a mistake, that gap will come down, but of course after the end of this 24 hours fatigue does kick in, so mistakes are likely, but at the same time I think a lot of these drivers are just racing off of muscle memory at this point. You become sort of used to the lines that you have to take, especially when you've driven a car for so many hours over the 24 hours. Yanis OLR is in chat. Hello. If you want us to watch a specific car, I'm assuming you want us to see the OLR team performing very well. They're about 17 seconds in front of P6 at the moment. There's been a potential battle brewing between these two teams, but at the moment number 39 is far ahead of P6, and it looks like it will be that way for the rest of the the race. The last lap times for P number 5, Spursum set a 217.780 compared to Jurgens, they set a 218.905. So of course about a second and tenths that was gained on the previous lap. Very solid going from Jorg Spursum at the moment, seeing how much time they can gain overall. We'll jump on board with the leader for a few laps. They're just coming across the line now to start the 258th lap of this 10.5-hour stint. Of course, we have had a few laps, or majority of laps were completed during the first half of the race. This stint is only 10.5 hours long due to the server issues we have had. We managed to get this race back up and going though. We've been solid so far for this remaining 10.5 hours. So we are looking like it will be finishing 25 minutes ago. We're hoping that the server stays stable. But of course it is up to the server gods. Kartovic is doing very fast lap times at the moment. They previously set 217. They did make a little bit of a mistake on the previous lap, but I've been setting 216 mid 216 lap times. Of course that is a very fast lap time. Their best lap overall is 215.8. So once again doing incredibly fast lap times, doing very well for the VDAS Portal number 1 car. Very nice livery on that Lexus as well. Nice blend of red and black. Of course, that livery is reflected in the number 65 Nikolai Kulikov's car. Again, a VS Portal, so racing the same livery in both Lexus. Been a position change for Darkness and Sasluna. Of course, Sasluna did do the drive-through penalty, so of course that position has been changed. I think Sasluna will be looking to fight back for that position between Darkness and them. Darkness is of course setting slower lap times than Sasluna, so there's a potential for Sasluna to take that P8 position. There was a drive-through penalty which was served by Darkness. I believe that was for track limits, and then of course a drive-through penalty was donated by Darkness to Sasluna, which of course led to Sasluna coming out of the pit lane just behind Darkness's 965 McLaren, which you can see just in front. We'll stay on board with this battle for now as it is only 1 second, and of course this is a battle for position between P8 and P9. Number 965 Mustang has had a very good race so far. They started off towards the rear of the grid. They attempted to do a last to first sort of thing, and of course they are in P8 at the moment. They started off during the first stint coming into P1, but then of course had a few issues during the server restarts and the other stints of the race have been set back into P8. Still a very good result for the Project Loki racing team, and of course they are now battling for that P8 position with Daniel Sasluna behind. I believe Daniel Sasluna and Sachin Darkness are good friends, or potentially know each other, slash their friends are friends of each other, so there is potential for a bit of carnage and chaos between these two, but hopefully it stays all clean. You can see it is both Mustangs, the Chamura Racing team, the CRT Mustang, going for a dive down the inside, makes a clean overtake. It looks like Sachin Darkness will be going for the switchback there up the inside at the hairpin at turn 1. And it's going to be a drag race down into Eau Rouge. Both cars are side by side as they come down towards the Eau Rouge section. It seems like the CRT Mustang of Daniel Sasluna slipped back behind the Mustang of Darkness, kept it safe for that one. It will now be a drag race with the slipstream down the Kemmel Straight in towards Lacombe. It will be a drag race down to the end. They've moved out to the outside. Daniel Sasluna will be looking for a dive around the outside of the Project Low-Key Mustang, sticks it around the outside, doesn't get enough overlap, so fills in behind them once again, and is now trailing behind for the position into P8. Daniel Sasluna doing very well to put that pressure on, looking to the inside, going back to the outside. Sachin Darkness keeping it nice and clean and consistent, sticking to the inside of that corner, getting that nice racing line. taking advantage of the fact that they are ahead in the clean air. Daniel Sluna looking for a better exit out of this one, but potentially doesn't get it. That gap is widening a little as they race down towards Puon. It is the fast double left-hander here at Spa. Daniel Sluna again dropping back a little bit, potentially having a better exit out of that Puon corner. Looking to the outside once again, not going to be a dive made there. Sachin goes a little bit wide of the apex on that one. You can see the car getting a little bit unsteady on the apex, but it seems like these cars are very close. Daniel Sluna looks to the inside of the next corner, dives back to the outside, keeps on applying that pressure to Darkness. Darkness not falling for it at the moment. Of course, it matters who gets the better exit out of this one. It seems like Darkness has once again gotten a better exit out of the Stavelo section of track. They're now heading down towards Blanchemont and into the final bus stop, Chicane, to complete their 253rd lap of the race. The slipstream for Sluna is playing into their advantage. You can see a little bit of twitching under braking there, trying to decide which side to go towards. They're looking for a switchback on the outside on to the bus stop chicane. They're going to be on the outside. It's going to be a drag race down towards the first corner. The Lexus pulls in front. The CRT Mustang is in front at the moment. Project Low-Key is going to be looking for a move back up the inside, but at the moment just switches back in behind. Seems that position is gained. Sachin Darkness will be looking to apply that pressure similarly to the CRT Mustang to see if there is any change between those two. Got some support in chat for the CRT Mustang. Callum Blythe, who is driving on that team, has put yes. And of course that was a very nice section of battle in between these two cars. You can see Sachin Darkness now trying to gain that slipstream from Sluna, but it is a little bit too far back to gain anything too significant. We'll jump on board with Dennis Sluna for now and see how that gap emerges. We've got someone from car number 341 in chat as well. Car number 341 is in P20 at the moment. That's the Chaos Racing Team number 341 Ferrari. Of course these guys are on a lap by themselves. They're on lap 231. They are behind car number 201, who is on lap 241. So about a 10 lap difference between those two there. And of course 6 laps ahead of JCNG, the number 77 Mustang, McLaren as well. So they've got a fairly solid gap. They just need to relax and keep it consistent for the rest of this race. And we'll see if anything happens. There we've got someone from car number 606 in the chat. It's currently driven by Halvar Schulz. They are in P13 at the moment. They're on lap 251. They're on a lap by themselves. The driver in front is on lap 252. The driver behind is on lap 250. So again, just another team that needs to keep it consistent towards the end of this race, and they will be good. You can see the Blackout Racing BMW in P13 at the moment. They're only 3 seconds back on track, but of course there is that lap difference between the drivers. We have someone from car number 52 out in the chat as well. Sam's Visa is looking for a 2:17 lap time at the moment. Their best is a 2:18.3, so 4/10 or 3/10 need to be gained on their personal best to get that 2:17 lap time. They're heading down into Rouge at the moment, keeping it tight to the left hand side, trying to keep it tight to the right hand side, but having to lift potentially at the top of Rouge there, not quite sticking to the inside of Rouge most. So I don't think this lap time will be a 2:17, but we'll keep our eye on things and see how they do. They're heading now down into Lacombe, turns 7, 8 and 9. Trying to keep it close to the apex once again, missing out a little, but keeping it nice on the apex for the second corner. Around the right-hander, keeping it tight to the apex, not using too much of the curb in that Ferrari, and breaking down into Bruxelles. They are going nicely in that corner, keeping it tight to the inside, and of course getting a good exit as a result. They are behind the number 606 BMW, who we also had some support from in chat. They are currently in P13, so that is a faster car in front. I'm not sure there'll be any thing that is blocking the V7 fastest lap there. You can see the 606 going wide on that corner, though. That is Puon that they went wide on, so that gap has diminished slightly. I don't think there'll be an unlapping attempt from Zavisa, but we'll see. They are trying to set 2:17 lap times, so of course they will be trying to go as fast as they can. We've got some support from the car number 39 as well. Seen plenty of action from car number 39 this race. Of course they've had some ballast donated, some ballast taken away, but they are on minus 40 kilograms of ballast at the moment. And they're about 1 minute and 10 seconds back from Hack in the number 23 Lexus. So the Spursum OLR Audi 20 seconds in front of Jurgens and about 1 minute 10 seconds back from Hack. So that is the P5 position, fairly secure at the moment. 16 minutes remain of the race, so I'm not sure there'll be any more position changes between these guys, but Spursum is doing very well in that Audi. I think the Audi is the rarest car that we see on grid today. We do have a few Lexuses, but the Lexus these days is quite popular. We do have McLarens, BMWs, Aston Martins, Porsches and Ferraris, but I think the Audi is the most interesting one that we have. Got some support in chat for this event. This event is, of course, 24 Hours of Spa. Is a fundraiser for the charity Breast Cancer Now. They are a charity which provides the best treatment services and care for people affected by breast cancer. So they don't just help people directly affected, they also help the families of those, so the people indirectly affected, to have the best care and survive. Their goal is that by 2050, everyone diagnosed with breast cancer goes through to survive the best life and live the best life that they can. So they're a very good charity. Of course, 1 in 7 women around the world do unfortunately have breast cancer, so it's something which we can all, unfortunately, I'm sure, have heart for. And of course, we have raised £1,571.50 at the moment in this race. Very good amount of money raised. Of course, every pound for charity counts. So of course, if you have any spare money that you wish to donate to charity, please do donate. And of course, there is 5 minutes left of donation penalties as well. You can donate to see some penalties and some ballast applied to some drivers. We previously had a drive-through for car number 69, drive-through for car number 965, all donated towards the end of this race. And you can also take away or add on some ballast for some other drivers. A few hours back, we had minus 80 kilograms for car number 69. I believe they were on positive 40 kilograms, so obviously 80 taken away. They are now on negative 40 kilograms, so they'll be much faster than they were originally. But of course, those donations are available to charity if you wish to make them. The link for that is acm-racing.com/fundraiser. It's pinned in the Twitch chat. If you want to send it again, just let me know. Gaps are certainly spread out a little bit now. I think the closest one which we have on track is this Jurgens to Spursum battle, which is 20 seconds. There is a 16-second gap between Martinez and Mallorca in P10 and P11, but nothing too close. There is a 7-second gap between P12 and P13, but of course there is 1 lap's difference between those two cars, so nothing major for position there. The team that's playing it very consistently is the Toga Academy number 45 Aston Martin. Bart de Kouwer, that team has set the best lap time of 2:19.1, so of course is not on the same level as the other teams who are setting 2:16s, 2:17s, but of course keeping it consistent and are currently in 14. Very consistent race for these guys in the Aston Martin, of course keeping it steady and going for this race. Going around Eau Rouge at the moment. We'll jump back on board with the car number 52. Of course, they were trying to set a fast lap towards the end of this race, trying to set a 2:17. Their previous lap time was a 2:21.5, so they're not set that 2:17 yet. Of course, their best lap time is a 2:18.3, so they do, of course, have 3 or so tenths to gain to get that 2:17 lap time. 13 minutes to do so. I reckon it's possible. My support is for Sam Zavisa at the moment. That BMW in front is a lapped car, or a faster car, sorry, so I believe they will be unlapping potentially. Team 45, the consistency bros, yep, that is indeed for sure. Of course, as I said, 2:19 is the fastest lap time from those guys, and they are in P14, so that consistency has paid off, and they are comfortably in P14, as well as about a minute's gap to P15, and of course a lap ahead to P13. Yeah, unfortunate to hear about that grid bug that happened. Of course, ACC, an old game, does still have some underlying bugs and issues. We try and run the best events that we can, but of course not everything is as smooth as always. Very good race nevertheless for P14 for you guys. It's a shame to see that you aren't higher, but there is obviously a few laps difference to the cars around you, so it would have been interesting to see where you would have been regardless of the pit lane start. Sam's Visa will be coming across the line to set a new lap time. They have just finished the 219.3, so again, not quite at 217. They are potentially getting caught up by this faster car now, though, so potentially going to be making an unlapping attempt on that number 606 BMW. Yeah, nothing you guys could do about the Italian spaghetti code. Yeah, unfortunately we had some server issues as well. The hardware which we rent the servers from seemed to have some downtime over the night, so unfortunately we had a few restarts. We've got it on one of our backup servers now though, which is only meant to be a practice server, but is doing relatively well to keep it stable. 11 minutes left of the race. I'm hoping, got my fingers crossed, that the server survives, but of course can only pray to the server gods on that one. Sam Savisa once again still stuck behind that faster car, so looking for any unlapping overtake that they can make to set that 217 that they are aiming for. The gap between Martinez and Mallorca is still about 16 seconds. Of course, towards the start of the stint, it was about 14 seconds, so they have dropped back slightly from Mallorca, but only about 2 or 3 seconds, which is not too major, but of course is still a few seconds. So nothing I don't think will change between P10 and P11, but of course any mistake that is made will affect the race significantly. The Mallorca number 151 BMW is going through a rouge at the moment. I don't believe they have made any mistake, thankfully, so Mel Martinez will again be chasing down, trying to get that lap time on car number 151 to try and get the best result that they can. Halvar Schulz is only on track 4.5 seconds back from Bjorkman, but is of course 1 lap back from the number 275 Ball Squad Racing Aston Martin. So while it does look close on my timing sheet, there is that laps difference. So of course I don't think there'll be any position change for P12 and P13. And unfortunately, it seems like there's a rear end lockup for Halvar Schulz there as they went into the bus stop section. Heavy impact on the front of that BMW. They're going into the pit lane to repair it. It's unfortunate I switched them at that time. It seems like the rear end just gave way to them under braking, and unfortunately they will be set into the pit lane for that. It is 1 lap that they have advantage over the number 45 Aston Martin, who's just crossing the line. So of course if the repair damage is less than, say, about 60 seconds or so, I think they should be fine to keep that position. But again, we'll keep our eye on it and see if there is any position change. Just had a £100 donation from someone. Thank you so much, Worsh. Not sure whether you're watching the stream or not, but that is an excellent donation from yourself. I'm sorry to hear that your mum has breast cancer. I'm wishing her all the best for what she is going through, and I'm hoping that you are okay with that as well. Of course, cancer is one of the most destroying things in this world. There's no word to describe it really. So of course, raising money for these charities is the best that we can do. Of course, donation penalties are now unfortunately closed. 8 minutes left of the race. Donation penalties closed. The results that you see at the moment are likely to be what they will be for the end of the race, but we'll keep our eye on things to see how they progress. Wersh is in chat now. My mum has breast cancer and they removed a tumour last week. I'm glad to hear that it's gone. Hopefully the rest goes well if there is anything else which is outstanding. All my best wishes to her and of course to yourself, and I wish that all goes well. Breast Cancer Now is a service which campaigns to get the best treatment, services and care for people affected by breast cancer. So if anyone else watching would like to send some support to the Breast Cancer Now charity, you can of course donate through acm-racing.com/fundraiser, and of course all proceeds do go to the Breast Cancer Now charity. I believe there is a 5% cut that the Tiltify service takes, but of course that is the service we are using for fundraising, as that allows us to get the donation information. 7 minutes left of this race. Schulz is still in the pit lane. Of course, that number 45, Aston Martin, who we saw is heading towards the bus stop at the moment. Heading through the bus stop, about to start a new lap. So the Halver Schulz, number 606, needs to start thinking about leaving the pit lane relatively soon if he wants to keep on that P13 position. And if not, that P45, that car 45, Kawa will be gaining that place. 13 seconds currently exist. I think it will be a position gain for Kawa. That rear end locking mistake that was made by car number 606 has unfortunately lost him that position towards the end of the race. The last 6 minutes of the race is really unfortunate to see, but of course I'm sure the car number 45 is celebrating that position change. Halver Schulz coming out of the pit lane now, so they will be about 15 seconds back from the number 45 Aston Martin. Not sure whether that can be gained in these remaining few minutes, but we'll keep our eye on things to see how they progress. Martinez is now 19.5 seconds back from Mallorca, so I think Mallorca is fine to just keep it consistent until the end. The number 455 car 20 seconds back from Mallorca, number 151. Previous lap times for the two cars was a 219.7 for Mallorca and a 221.7 for Martinez. So again, about 2 seconds that was gained by Mallorca on that previous lap. So I think Martinez is having a bit of an effect of fatigue at this stage in the race. Of course, it's to be expected. 24 hours of racing is not easy at the best of times, so keeping it going and keeping it consistent is good to see. The transmission racing team, an excellent livery on that McLaren. We'll try and find a better angle of it as it goes down in towards Eau Rouge, following behind a train of blue flags and faster cars at the moment. The number 155 is 2 cars ahead. The number 155 of course did start from the rear of the grid towards the start of this 10.5 hour stint. They are currently in P3. They're about a lap back from the P2 and of course a minute back track, so something which they will have to be probably keeping their eye on. Spursum, the car number 39, we've had some support for in chat. They're coming around towards Blanchemont at the moment. The car P4 in front of them is in the pit lane. Car number 23 is pitting for their stint timer, so potentially a position change to be made here. You can see Milan Hack is potentially going to be doing a drive-through to reset this stint timer. It is of course possible to do so, but they are keeping it tight towards the garages, so I think there will be a position gained for Spursum if a stop is made by Hack. That will be a position gain into P5. Both cars are on the same lap now, of course, so if they can just get past the car number 23 by the end of the straight. Car number 23 has come to a stop now, is doing their pit stop. Not sure how much they are going to do of the stop. If they're changing tyres, of course that will be definitely a position lost, but Spursum blasts past the number 23 car. Into P4 goes Spursum. An excellent race for the number 39 Over Limit Racing team. They've kept it nice and consistent up into P4 now. They are about 1 lap behind P3, so I'm not sure there's going to be an additional position change there, but of course we will keep our eye on things. 3 minutes left of the race. Hack has just emerged from the pit lane, only about 10 seconds back from Spursum now, so potentially something which can occur now. We'll be seeing what goes on. I'm not sure what the pit stop for Hack consisted of. The stop time for them was 8 seconds, so I think it was literally just for fuel, so that pit stop was as efficient as it probably could have been, and of course they are now 10 seconds back from Spursum. If they can catch sort of 5 seconds a lap, then they can gain that position back, but of course that is quite a lot to ask at the end of this race. 2 minutes 50 seconds left of this 24 hours of Spa. £1,671.50 has been raised for breast cancer now so far. An excellent amount raised for charity. Of course we couldn't ask for more, but of course charity does need the most it can get. This race was, of course, held by ACM Racing. ACM Racing holds an endurance race every weekend for 6 weeks straight, followed by one break weekend, followed by another 6 weeks of endurance racing. We all different types of formats. We do Nordschleife Endurance Series, which is literally just Nordschleife with different formats, weather, cars, etc. It's a very good series, very fun series. It was very popular last year, and again this year, very popular once again. We have a 2026 endurance series, which is a more generic endurance series, racing at tracks such as Imola, Brands Hatch, Spa, etc. Next weekend we have the 2026 endurance series, 4 hours of Brands Hatch, which has 65 cars signed up to it at the moment. We'll be confirming whether we do 2 splits or 1 splits throughout the week for that race. Weekend after that we have 8 hours on Nordschleife. That's part of the NLS Endurance Series 2026. So of course the 21st of March for that race. Weekend after that is a break weekend, but the weekend after that is a 6 hour of Imola for the 2026 Endurance Series. 6 weeks from yesterday we have 12 hours of Imola. That one is a fundraiser for the Air Ambulance Service. The Air Ambulance Service is of course another excellent charity to raise money for, so if you are free on the 18th of April, please do consider getting yourselves involved in that. Of course, if you want to check out ACM Racing, then acm-racing.com is the place to go. The browse events is available on there. We have some data in the ACM app and some other handy features on the website as well. So please do check us out if you want to fancy joining. We have 5 sprint events per week as well, so plenty to go on if you want to get involved. This has been the 24 hours of Spa. We are on the final lap now. I'm sure you heard the call out across the previous lap. Stanislav Kartovic will be the one to come across the line in first place. They are on a lap of their own. 267 laps completed in the previous 10.5 hours of this race. Number 1 Lexus has done an incredibly good performance this race, setting a fastest lap time of a 215.8, which of course is an incredibly fast lap time. They have been benefited by minus 20 kilograms of ballast as well, so of course something to take into consideration. There is unfortunately a drive-through for car number 23 which has just appeared, so their dreams of getting back at Spurzheim has unfortunately faded, and they might even potentially lose that position to Jurgens as well, and Smith Adams is only about 50 seconds back from them as well, so potentially a few positions to be dropped due to that drive-through from Milan Hack. But nevertheless, we'll jump back on board with the P1 Stanislav Kartovic as they come through the final corner and are about to cross the line to finish the 24 hours of Spa side by side with their teammate number 65, 1 lap behind. P1 and P2 for the VDES portals. Lexus's, the 2 cars have done an incredibly good performance in those 2 races, and of course cross the line together to round out the 24 hours of Spa. An excellent race this has been. They resume the donuts as they finished the race now, and of course I'm sure everyone will be coming across the line. Daniel Cataldo will be the one to cross the line in 3rd place. That is the Mustang of the number 155 team. Of course this team started in last during this 2.5 hour sprint, so of course very good performance to get up into P3, and of course is only about 1 lap back from P2, and they are of course 1 lap back from P1, so very close race up here at the top towards the start. Cataldo has done an excellent job to get this car back in towards P3, and of course we'll be coming through the bus stop chicane now to finish off this race, the 24 hours of Spa. The number 155 ISS Racing Team Mustang comes across the line, flashing the lights, finishes in P3 and takes that trophy home. Spurzheim, the number 39 Audi, will be the one next to cross the line. That is P4 that those guys will take. Milan Hack has already taken the line. That's P5 for Marcin. He's got 80-second penalty unfortunately, so 15 seconds. That'll be P7 for Hack. Unfortunately, it brought Jurgens and Smith Adams, though. The Jurgens, I believe that is the Power Cut Racing, and they will be promoted into P5, and the Ball Squad Racing number 274 for Nathan Smith Adams will be promoted into P6. P9 has been taken by Sachin Darkness of Project Loki. These guys have had another excellent race, of course starting from the rear of the grid, coming up into P1 during the first hour, having a battle with a few other Mustangs, but of course having to settle for P9 in the end due to a few issues with incidents and so on. Very good top 10 performance from all these guys. Of course Sachin Darkness coming across the line and rounding out their finish. Spurzheim is coming through the final corner now, about to finish the 24 Hours of Spa for the Over Limit Racing team comes across the line once again, doing some showing off and making contact with the wall there. But that is the race finished. Great performance from everyone, and of course a significant amount raised for charity as well. £1,761 was raised. A great race from everyone. We had a total of 34 teams on track. And of course, we had a few server issues, but we managed to get through it all. But yeah, great race, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along. Of course, we have 4 hours of the Brands Hatch next weekend, and tonight we have 60 minutes at Spa. So if you fancy joining in, acm-racing.com is the place you want to be. Thank you very much for everyone for coming along. We will see you in the next one.